let's be honest, Snape looks like an obsessive creep. I mean, he's such a bully, and he looks like he never even washes his hair, and he hates children more than any gym teacher you've ever even met.
That you feel confident enough to not pay attention.
And this middle-aged man is hopelessly in love with his childhood crush. But sometimes he is nice. And all of that makes him the most hotly debated character in all of Harry Potter. And there's one scene early on in the series that completely changes the way that we see him. But you probably missed it. Snape is a good man, and you can find the proof in 3 seconds of footage from The Prisoner of Azkaban. But before we show you the scene, you need to understand what the Snape paradox is all about. Now, according to a lot of people, the Snape paradox is pretty simple. He dedicated his entire adult life to stopping Voldemort, but he's also weird, mean, and possibly racist? How can all these things be true at the same time? Well, they can all be true because Snape is pretty well written. He's flawed, for sure, yeah, but unfailingly willing to do the right thing when it matters the most. The third Harry Potter movie has one of the most chaotic endings in the entire series. Harry finds out that the man he thought helped kill his parents is actually the only family he has left in the world.
But you look so like your father.
And we learn that the rat Ron has been sharing a bed with for the last several years is actually a grown-ass man and a Death Eater. And to make matters even worse, we find out that Remus Lupin, one of the nicest teachers at Hogwarts, has been keeping a big secret. He's a werewolf. And just when you think things can't even get worse, Snape inserts himself into the scene just as Harry is being bombarded with life-changing information. It turns out that Snape, Lupin, and Sirius Black all have a long and sad history together. And because of that, Snape is now ready to get his revenge on 2 people who bullied him when he was a kid. But Harry isn't about to let that happen, at least not until he hears the whole story from Sirius Black. So he ends up attacking his potions teacher, and Snape is knocked unconscious in the exchange. After that, Harry learns that Sirius is actually his godfather, and things finally seem like they're going well. And he might even be able to say goodbye to the Dursleys for good. How's that for a happy ending? But don't get your hopes up, because as they are leaving, they notice a full moon in the sky, and Lupin begins to transform. In the chaos, Peter Pettigrew escapes, and what follows is a really blink and you miss it subtle moment. Snape regains consciousness only to find a fully grown werewolf standing in front of him. And what does he do? He gathers Harry, Ron, and Hermione behind him and literally shields them with his own body. Later on, we're presented with a question. Does Snape's bravery justify a lifetime of bad behavior? Is he a selfless hero or just a creepy incel? Honestly, who knows? Actually, I do. Movie Snape was willing to die horribly to protect 3 children he doesn't even like. What else do you need to know about a person? He's not perfect, but neither are you, and neither am I. And neither are many of the beloved Harry Potter characters. For example, Mrs. Weasley is pretty petty, and Sirius is genuinely abusive to creature. And Dumbledore, well, there's a lot you could say about him. For example, he's arguably the villain of Snape's story. Now, we could do a whole video on the way that Dumbledore treats people, and we probably will at some point. But for now, let's keep it to Snape. We know that Dumbledore is the entire reason Snape got a second chance at life. We're not going to ignore that detail, but still, when you get right down to it, the headmaster of Hogwarts uses his potion instructor like an object. That's a pretty common Dumbledore move, actually. Let's talk about the good things about their relationship first. Dumbledore gives Snape a job at Hogwarts, and probably at that point, he's the only person in the entire wizarding world who would even trust him. And he also stands up for Snape during the Death Eater trials that we see in Goblet of Fire. But it turns out that Snape's role at Hogwarts was actually very carefully designed. I mean, it's not like it's part of any second chance for felons program that Dumbledore is running. It's a trap for Voldemort, and Snape is activated the moment that the Dark Lord returns from the dead. In the Goblet of Fire, he leaves Hogwarts to go to the newly revived Voldemort, knowing there is a very good chance he will be killed on sight. That's not what happens, of course, but he accepts the possibility, knowing that it's part of the deal he made with Dumbledore many years earlier. Then, Dumbledore makes Snape kill him. Now, this is messed up for a few reasons. For one thing, Dumbledore is probably the only friend Snape has in the whole world. Now, we do see him interact with other teachers throughout the series, but still, we never see any evidence that he has close relationships with any of them. That's probably because most people just see him as a former Death Eater. Now, remember, no one in the entire wizarding world knows that Snape has dedicated his entire adult life to stopping Voldemort. They just see him as some mean guy who used to be much, much worse. Dumbledore is the only person who really understands Snape, so it must have been very difficult to kill him. And to make matters worse, this terrible moment completely destroys Snape's entire life. Up until the very end, everyone sees him as just a terrible villain, second only to Voldemort himself. And by the way, this is also the moment that seals Snape's fate, because Voldemort kills the Potion Master to gain control over the Elder Wand, because he believed that Snape controlled the wand because he was the one to kill Dumbledore. It's an incorrect assumption, but one that got him murdered just the same. Around this time, Snape finds out that the entire purpose of his life, keeping Harry safe, is no longer part of the plan. Dumbledore tells him that to kill Voldemort, Harry needs to die, and even Snape, the grumpiest character in the series, thinks that's messed up. Can you even imagine a lonelier person? He has no friends, he has no family, and he has no one in the world who even understands that he is as brave and as selfless as a human can be. Dumbledore understands all this, and he uses it to his advantage in the end. It's devastating when you put it down like that. Now, there are a few reasons why some people on the internet say Snape is unforgivable. One of the big ones is that he bullies children. Now, that's definitely a bad thing to do, especially if you're a teacher. I mean, there's a reason that Snape is Neville's #1 fear in The Prisoner of Azkaban. Another reason is that many people also claim that Snape is a racist. Racist in the wizarding world sense anyways, and there is a case to be made for this one. For one thing, we know that he called Lily a mudblood, and we also know that he is a reformed Death Eater, and that blood purity was a big thing for Voldemort and his followers. And finally, there's the big question of, is Snape creepy? And we'd say that yes, he clearly is. I mean, come on, it's not cool to obsess over a woman who isn't interested in you, and it's a lot less cool to do it for decades on end. You could argue though that this is just another way that Snape is tragic. I mean, he only ever loved one person, but now she's dead, and she never shared his feelings. In fact, the boy that she did love was Snape's schoolyard bully. Ugh. But none of that really matters though, because at the end of the day, Snape is still a hero. Remember that most of these complaints are from events that took place before the series even begins, and we don't really know what his thoughts are on blood purity by the time we meet him in the series, but we do know that he's willing to die to stop the movement he used to be a part of. The bullying is a more current problem, but a person who's willing to die for his students is a good man, even if he can be a bit grumpy and rude. But people take these details and separate them from all the good things that Snape did. Now, it's true, he didn't live a blameless life, but he did live a realistic one, and you might not want him as a teacher, but when an immortal villain who can kill people with a single word is on the loose, you're gonna want Snape on your side. Now, if you're 40 years old or younger, we're willing to bet that Snape is probably the man who introduced you to the idea of an anti-hero, a person who does good things, but in a complicated way. Now, again, the feelings that he has for Lily are weird. You definitely don't want to be on the other end of that, and the way that he treats kids is difficult to accept. And his history as a Death Eater, well, by 21st century standards, he's probably canceled for life. But at the end of the day though, none of that matters. The scene by the Whomping Willow just illustrates an idea that we consistently see throughout the series, that, well, you may not always like what Snape does, and trust us, we don't, but when it counts the most, he does the right thing. If anything, if he's guilty of any major sin, it's probably being better written than the format requires. I mean, Harry Potter is a children's story after all, and Snape is maybe a little more complicated than most children can fully understand, but at the end of the day though, Voldemort probably wouldn't have been defeated without Snape. He's not perfect, but he is a hero. Snape is complicated. He's mean, he's deeply unpleasant, and at one point, he was a genuine villain. I mean, you don't get a dark mark tattoo for nothing after all. But by the time we meet him, a lot of things have changed. He's still grumpy for sure, he's unkind to children, and he's certainly not very fair. I mean, you could definitely make a strong case that he is a bad teacher, but the internet conversation surrounding Snape is just unfair. We've called it the Snape paradox, but the issue is a bit wider than that, and it could apply to any of us. Like, what defines a person? And how do you add up a lifetime of behaviors? Snape was made to be a complicated character. I mean, 15 years after the Deathly Hallows hit theaters, and all of that complexity is still a mess to untangle. But he's a hero. And that perfect moment at the Whomping Willow proves something is subtly on display throughout the whole series. Snape is as selfless as a human can be, and while giving makes him grumpy, that's not what's important. He made a terrible choice as a young man and decided that he would pay any price to fix it. And he does pay in the end, with his life. But none of the mistakes outweigh the good that Severus Snape did.